10 items on this list are actually costing Dollar Tree money every single time you buy them. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why a multi-billion-dollar company keeps selling products that lose them profit. Some of these will genuinely surprise you, and at least one of them is probably sitting in your house right now. Stick around until the end, because the last item on this list is the one nobody talks about, and it might be the biggest reason prices have been creeping up everywhere else in the store. If you're new here, this channel breaks down what's actually worth buying at Dollar Tree, what to avoid, and what's really going on behind the price tags. So if that sounds useful to you, go ahead and hit subscribe before we get started, because there's a new list like this every single week, and I genuinely think this one is going to change how you look at your next trip to the store. Before we jump in, I want to explain quickly how retailers actually calculate whether an item is profitable, because it's not as simple as price minus cost. You have to factor in shipping weight, packaging materials, warehouse space, shelf turnover speed, employee labor to stock and restock, and even how much space each product takes up on a delivery truck. When you add all of that up, some products that look cheap and simple sitting on the shelf are actually costing the company more than the sticker price ever brings back in. That's exactly what's happening with the 10 items on this list, and once you see the pattern, you'll probably start noticing it every single time you walk down the aisles yourself. One more thing before we start. I'm not saying any of these items are bad to buy. In fact, several of them are genuinely great deals for you as the shopper, precisely because the store is absorbing the loss instead of you. So if anything, this list should help you shop smarter, not avoid these items altogether. All right, let's get into it. Number 1. The large ceramic mixing bowls. These have been on shelves for years, and at $1.25, they simply do not cover what it costs to source, ship, and stock ceramic in bulk. Ceramic is heavy, it's fragile, and breakage during transport is common, which means a percentage of every single shipment never even makes it to the shelf in sellable condition, and that loss gets absorbed somewhere in the supply chain. Retail analysts have pointed out that heavy glassware and ceramic items are some of the worst performing categories for dollar stores specifically, because shipping costs alone eat almost the entire margin before the product even reaches the store. Add in the cost of the protective packaging needed to prevent breakage during the trip from the warehouse, and you're looking at a category that barely survives on paper, if it survives at all. So why do they keep selling them? Because ceramic mixing bowls bring people into the store for a specific, intentional reason. Once you're walking the aisles looking for a bowl, you're also picking up snacks, cleaning supplies, and seasonal decor, and that's where the real profit actually comes from. The bowl is basically bait, and it works exactly the way it was designed to work from the very beginning. Number 2. Full-size greeting cards. This one shocks a lot of people, but greeting cards at Dollar Tree are printed on higher quality cardstock than you'd expect for the price. And licensing fees for some of the character and holiday designs are genuinely not cheap. When you factor in printing costs, licensing fees for popular characters, envelope production, and the fact that greeting cards take up valuable shelf space that could otherwise hold higher margin seasonal items, this entire category barely breaks even in most store locations across the country. But cards are what's called a traffic driver in retail terms. People come in specifically for a birthday card because they forgot, or because they need one at the last minute before a party, and while they're already there, they grab wrapping paper, a gift bag, tape, and a candle. The card itself might lose the company money on its own, but the trip it generates ends up making the store money several times over once everything else in the cart gets added up. Number 3. The oversized bags of ice melt in winter. This one is seasonal, but it's a big one, and it catches a lot of people completely off guard when they hear about it. Ice melt is heavy, it's bulky, and shipping heavy bags of salt-based product across the country is expensive, especially when fuel prices climb during the exact winter months when demand for it is at its highest. Multiple industry reports have flagged rock salt and ice melt as one of the lowest margin products dollar stores carry anywhere in their catalog, especially during years when road salt prices spike due to supply chain issues or shortages coming out of major salt mining operations. Dollar Tree keeps stocking it every single winter anyway, because when it's freezing outside and you need ice melt immediately, you are not driving around comparing prices at 5 different stores in the cold. You're grabbing the first bag you see that's actually in stock, and while you're there, you're also grabbing coffee, snacks, hand warmers, and probably a few other things you didn't originally plan on buying that day. Number 4. The full loaf pans and baking sheets. This follows a very similar pattern to the ceramic bowls, but it's even more pronounced because metal bakeware has gotten noticeably more expensive to manufacture over the last several years. Steel prices fluctuate constantly based on global industrial demand, and a $1.25 price point does not leave much room at all when raw material costs jump even slightly from one quarter to the next. Former employees have mentioned in interviews that bakeware restocks are some of the slowest moving, highest cost items to keep consistently available on shelves, partly because of the raw metal cost and partly because of how much physical space each pan takes up inside a delivery truck compared to lighter items. But baking season, especially around the holidays, drives massive foot traffic into the store every single year, and Dollar Tree knows that a customer buying a loaf pan is also going to grab parchment paper, oven mitts, holiday napkins, and decorative cupcake liners, all on that same single trip through the store. Number 5. The reading glasses. This one genuinely surprises people because reading glasses feel like they should be a solid margin item at such a low price point. But the reality behind the scenes is completely different. Reading glasses require actual quality control during manufacturing. They need to meet certain optical clarity standards even at just $1 or $2, and complaints or returns about incorrect magnification happen far more often than most people would assume walking past that little rotating display near the front of the store. The cost of maintaining consistent lens quality across thousands and thousands of units, combined with the packaging needed to protect the lenses during shipping and handling, makes this category one of the tightest margins found anywhere in the entire store. Dollar Tree keeps them stocked anyway because reading glasses are what's known in retail circles as a destination item. People specifically go to Dollar Tree because they know the store reliably carries cheap reading glasses in a pinch, and once they're in the store for that one specific reason, they end up spending on groceries, cleaning supplies, and seasonal items scattered around them on the way to the checkout. Number 6. The potty balloons, specifically the foil number and letter balloons used for birthdays and other celebrations. Foil balloons are printed, cut, and packaged with more labor involved in the process than most shoppers realize, and helium costs have been genuinely volatile for years now due to global supply issues affecting the entire industry. When you break down the actual cost of production versus the $1 to $5 price point, depending on the size of the balloon, the margin ends up razor thin, especially once you factor in the reinforced packaging needed to keep them from tearing or puncturing during shipping and handling, from the manufacturer all the way to the shelf. But balloons are an impulse and event-driven purchase almost every single time. Nobody plans 2 weeks ahead for a birthday balloon. They need it today or tomorrow at the absolute latest. And Dollar Tree being the most accessible and affordable option in most neighborhoods means the store captures that last-minute purchase, along with everything else the customer grabs while they're already there for the rest of the party supplies. Number 7. The reusable shopping bags near the checkout counter. These are made from noticeably thicker material than the disposable plastic bags used to be years ago, and with more states and cities requiring stores to either charge for or completely eliminate single-use plastic bags, dollar stores have had to absorb the cost of stocking reusable alternatives directly at the register. The material itself, the printing on the outside of the bag, and the reinforced stitching required to make a bag that survives multiple trips back and forth costs more than the sale price actually reflects back to the company at the end of the day. It's essentially treated as a cost of doing business rather than a genuine standalone profit center, because not having them readily available right at checkout would slow down every single transaction and frustrate customers who need a bag immediately and don't want to make a special separate trip somewhere else just to grab one. Number 8. The extension cords and basic electrical accessories sold near the hardware section. Copper prices have been genuinely unstable for years now, and copper is the core material running through the center of every single extension cord sold anywhere on the market, regardless of brand. When copper prices spike, which they have done multiple times recently due to global industrial demand and mining constraints overseas, the cost to manufacture these cords goes up substantially and quickly, but the shelf price at a dollar store tends to stay completely fixed, because constantly changing price points on basic items would confuse customers and slowly damage the trust people have built with the brand over many years of shopping there. Retail supply chain reports have specifically called out copper-based products as a category where dollar stores are knowingly absorbing losses during high copper price periods just to keep the shelf price consistent and predictable for everyday shoppers walking through the door. They keep them stocked regardless, because an extension cord is the kind of item people often need immediately, sometimes even in a minor emergency, and dollar stores are frequently the closest and fastest option available in that exact moment. Number 9. The pet toys and pet accessories found in the growing pet section. This category has expanded significantly at Dollar Tree over the past several years, but a lot of the toys, especially the ones with built-in squeakers or multiple stitched fabric pieces sewn together, cost more to manufacture with proper safety testing than the low price point actually allows the company to recover. Pet product safety standards have gotten noticeably stricter across the entire industry over the last decade, which means more testing, more compliance paperwork, and more certification costs baked into each individual item before it ever even reaches the shelf in front of you. Despite all of that added cost, pet owners are some of the most loyal and repeat-driven shoppers found anywhere in retail, and once someone finds a dollar store toy their pet genuinely loves and keeps coming back to, they return weekly, sometimes even more often than that single trip. So Dollar Tree treats this entire section as a long-term loyalty play rather than a strict per-item profit category, deliberately accepting thinner margins now in exchange for consistent, predictable repeat visits later down the line. And number 10, the one I mentioned right at the very start of this video, the plug-in air fresheners and the refill fragrance oils that go along with them on the same aisle. This is the one almost nobody talks about, but it might genuinely be the most interesting item on this entire list once you understand what's actually going on behind it. The plastic housing for the plug-in unit itself, the small electrical components hidden inside it, and the liquid fragrance oil all have to meet strict safety and fire code standards, which adds significant testing and compliance costs that most everyday shoppers never even think about while browsing that particular aisle. On top of that baseline cost, fragrance oil pricing has been rising steadily over the last several years because a large portion of the raw ingredients used in production are tied to the same global supply chains affected by everything from international shipping costs to agricultural yields happening halfway around the world. When you break down the actual real cost to produce a compliant, properly tested, and genuinely safe electrical air freshener versus the simple $1 to $5 price tag sitting on the shelf, Multiple retail analysts have pointed to this exact category as one of the most consistently unprofitable found anywhere in the entire dollar store industry, year after year, without much change. So why does Dollar Tree keep restocking it every single month without fail, store after store? Because scent products create one of the strongest repeat purchase habits of almost anything sold anywhere in the store. Once someone finds a specific scent they genuinely like, they come back for that exact refill oil again and again and again, month after month. And that repeat trip is where the real long-term value comes from, even if the air freshener itself barely breaks even, or in some cases, quietly loses the company a small amount of money outright on paper. Before we get to the bigger picture, it's worth pointing out that Dollar Tree is far from the only retailer running this exact playbook, and understanding that context makes the whole strategy make even more sense. Grocery stores have used the exact same approach with milk and eggs for decades, pricing them low enough that they barely cover cost, specifically because those two items pull people into the store multiple times a week. Big box retailers like Walmart and Target have entire departments dedicated to identifying which products should be priced as loss leaders and which ones need to carry the heavier margin to compensate. The difference with Dollar Tree is scale and consistency. Because every single item in the store is priced at $1.25 or close to it, the company has almost no flexibility to quietly raise prices on the items that are losing money without it being immediately obvious to shoppers walking down the aisle. A grocery store can raise the price of milk by 10 cents and most people won't even notice. Dollar Tree raising the price of a mixing bowl by even a few cents would stand out immediately against everything else on the shelf, sitting at the exact same price point. That's actually part of why Dollar Tree eventually had to introduce higher price tiers in certain sections, specifically to give themselves more room to price higher cost items without disrupting the core dollar promise that built the brand in the first place. So in a strange way, some of the items on this list are the reason you've started seeing more $3 and $5 items appearing throughout the store over the last couple of years. The company needed somewhere to recover the margin it was losing elsewhere, and expanding into higher price tiers was the cleanest way to do that without abandoning the core $1 identity that customers still associate with the brand. It also explains why certain categories seem to rotate in and out of stock more unpredictably than others. When corporate buyers notice a loss, leader category is bleeding more than expected during a particular quarter, sometimes due to a spike in raw material costs or shipping rates, they'll quietly reduce order quantities for a cycle or two rather than pulling the item entirely or raising the price. That's often the real explanation behind those moments when you walk into a store looking for something you bought there just last month, only to find the shelf completely empty with no clear explanation, and an employee who genuinely doesn't know when it's coming back. So here's the bigger picture behind everything we just went through together. None of these individual items are actually why Dollar Tree stays profitable as a nationwide company. They're not supposed to be profitable on their own, and that's the part most everyday shoppers never really stop to think about. Retail experts call this a loss leader strategy, where certain specific products are priced deliberately low to get you in the door in the first place, or to build a long-term habit of coming back regularly, even if that specific product barely makes money or occasionally loses a small amount on paper once every cost is factored in. The real profit for the company comes from the higher margin categories like seasonal decor, party supplies, snacks, and packaged food items, which more than make up for whatever gets lost on bowls, extension cords, and air fresheners scattered throughout the store. It's a strategy that's been used by big box retailers for decades now, going all the way back to the earliest days of modern discount retail in this country, and Dollar Tree has essentially built an entire nationwide business model around executing this exact strategy at massive scale, across thousands of individual store locations every single day of the year without exception. It's also worth mentioning that this kind of pricing strategy is exactly why you'll sometimes notice certain items disappearing from shelves for a few weeks at a time, only to quietly come back later at the exact same price as before. When a specific category becomes too costly to maintain during a certain season or during a temporary supply shortage, corporate buyers will occasionally pull back temporarily rather than raise the shelf price, because raising prices on a basic dollar store item risks breaking the entire brand promise the company has spent years building its national reputation on. That's part of the reason why you might have noticed certain items feeling harder to find lately, even though the actual price tag hasn't visibly changed at all during that same stretch of time. So what does all of this actually mean for you as the person doing the shopping? Honestly, it mostly means you should feel good about buying every single item on this list, because in almost every case, the loss is being absorbed by the company, not by you. If anything, these 10 categories represent some of the best genuine value in the entire store, precisely because the price hasn't been adjusted to reflect rising costs the way it has been in other departments. A few practical takeaways worth remembering. First, if you rely on any of these items regularly, like reading glasses or extension cords, it makes sense to stock up a little when you see them in stock, since availability can be inconsistent depending on how corporate is managing that category during a given quarter. Second, keep an eye on seasonal categories like ice melt and baking pans, since those tend to disappear the fastest once the season shifts, partly because the company isn't eager to keep restocking a loss-leading item outside of its peak demand window. And third, if you've ever wondered why certain items feel like they've quietly gotten a little smaller or slightly lower quality over time while the price stayed the same, this is usually the reason. When a category is losing money, manufacturers and buyers will sometimes adjust materials or sizing slightly to close the gap, rather than touching the price tag that customers have come to expect and rely on. And honestly, once you start noticing this pattern, it's hard to unsee it. Almost every category in the store falls into one of two buckets. Either it's a genuine profit driver that keeps the lights on, or it's a loss leader designed purely to get you through the door and build a habit. The genius of the whole system is that most shoppers never separate the two. They just see one flat price across the entire store and assume everything works the same way behind the scenes, when in reality, some aisles are carrying the entire weight for others. If you found this breakdown useful, let me know in the comments which one of these 10 surprised you the most, because for me personally, it was the reading glasses. I genuinely did not expect that to be one of the tighter margin categories in the entire store, considering how simple the product looks, sitting there on that little rotating rack near checkout. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss next week's video, where I'm going to be covering the $10 tree items that actually make the company the most money per unit sold. And a couple of those numbers are going to surprise you just as much as this list did today, maybe even more. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.